So here we have the blue Jeep. This Jeep belongs to a guy that I know, and that used to be in there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean all this rust and stuff we need to clean. We're gonna knock those motor mounts off, that one and that one. Pull that bell housing off, pull these pipes out, clean all of this. We're gonna hit it with some rust converter or some POR 15. And then we are going to get it set up to put that in there. That is a small block Chevy that supposedly was built from a Corvette. We bought it assembled, so we don't know what that deal is. Weirdly, it has this Ken Gaudi stamped in, and whatever would have been there was ground off. Whatever would have been there got ground off. So we don't really know what's going on with that engine, although we know it's a 350. And it's been, supposedly it's rebuilt and it runs and all that stuff. We know it's not locked up, but that's about all we know. So it's cool. Haven't worked on a small block Chevy in a long time. So that's going to be neat, I think. And there are all kinds of kits and stuff that you can buy. We need a small block Chevy bell housing. Pull that bell off, and then this truck has got a 3-speed in it, which supposedly they make adapters and different things, and so we should be able to come up with something that's going to work pretty well. I think we may have to knock off these shock mounts and either make new ones or change their positioning a little bit. This truck must have been a 6-cylinder to begin with, because these motor mounts and all of this look kind of like they were hacked in there, like it was retrofitted. This whole Jeep, was worked over. It's got fiberglass tub, fiberglass fenders. The whole body's fiberglass. So the Jeep was definitely worked over quite a bit. It had a plow on it, believe it or not. We knocked off the lights, and then we're gonna knock off the plow frame. It doesn't need the plow frame. He's not gonna run a plow on it anymore. And then we're gonna probably knock off that and this, and we might leave that there as a guard. We're gonna leave the big bumper on the front. And this is the beast that came out of it. This is a AMC 304. It's complete from the carb to the oil pan. So we're probably gonna sell that. It's complete. We've got the manifolds. The pump, everything. We took this out. It's you say, well, why would you switch this out? Well, this is an AMC 304, which is a good motor, but they cost a lot to rebuild. They're very expensive to rebuild relative to that, and we know that has a rebuild on it. So we're gonna go with that. Plus, small block Chevy, whatever. There's parts. Everything is cheaper for a small block Chevy than for an AMC V8. I know this because I had an AMC V8 that I put into a Gremlin years ago, and it was expensive. It was very expensive to get parts for. There is an aftermarket following for these, but it's expensive. And so that's why we popped this buddy out. This runs, it ran. When the guy bought the truck, he drove it home with this engine. So we know it runs. But we're gonna change the program a little bit, because we're gonna go with headers. We're gonna throw a 4-barrel on it. It's gonna be noisy. It's gonna be cool. And we know it's gonna run good. Supposedly, the story that we were told was that, they put this motor in the vehicle and drove it, but then thought it had too much power, which, we'll see. You never know. You're buying an unknown. We'll see how radical it is when we actually put it together. If it's too, I mean, if it's true and it's too radical, it'll blow transmission and all that shit out of this Jeep. So we don't want to see that happen. But we'll see what we can come up with there, or what's going to happen, I should say, when we put that in there, because I don't know. I tend to be skeptical about all that. Oh, it's got all this horsepower, and all this, and the guy didn't, he took it out because it had too much power. Well, the guy who actually built that motor and was building those cars, he passed away, so he's not around to ask. And that's how it ended up at auction. So, let's see, it's a nice truck. Supposedly it had like a cab on it, a 2-person cab, and then they built this trunk lid, or this trunk lid maybe came with the body, but it opens up. Oh, it's heavy, but it opens up, and you got a little trunk back there. And you can see they used, like, I'm not sure what kind of hood hinges those are, but those are hood hinges off of something. And they got a little strut on it. And this looks like this had one at one point. It broke off. But there you go. That's this winter's project. We'll see what happens. So, project update. We removed the engine mounts that were in there. They were there. We cleaned that off. We took out the plow frame, which you can see is gone. This vehicle is never going to push the plow again. We removed the rest of the hookups for the plow. But we're going to keep this hoop. I'll have to obviously grind it and paint it and make it look better, but the hoop is going to stay. I think that'll look pretty cool, and that'll be a guard. We have a winch that's going to go there. We probably knocked about 10 pounds of rust off it as we were pounding on that stuff. This thing does have a lot of scaly rust underneath it. You see the muffler hanging down right there? We got the front pipes out, and we actually separated them. We did not use a Sawzall. We separated them by heating the collars on the mufflers, slitting them on one side, heating them, and then we were able to twist these out because we're probably going to reuse the back half of the exhaust system. It's not, it doesn't look like it's in great shape, right? But it's not in terrible shape, and owner doesn't want to make it a show car, so it's not going to be a show car. We're not doing the whole exhaust. And we will probably reuse those as well, those kinks right there, because those go up over there's already made, and they go up over the transmission cross member, and we'll probably cut those and hook them to the headers that we're going to get for that guy. We also were able to figure out that the transmission is a T15. And so we're going to get some parts, which I'll go over in the next part of this. We're going to get some parts that are going to adapt that transmission to a bell housing that will fit that guy. And then we'll have to figure out some stuff with the clutch. That is the clutch, the Z-bar mount for the clutch right there. We may have to take that loose and move it. It's already just fabbed in there. So we may be able to... we're able to get that work. You see there's all kinds of room in there. That's one good thing about this vehicle. There's a lot of room everywhere to do what you got to do. And then once we have the adapter's, I don't know, about an inch thick. Once we have the adapter on there and the bell housing on there, we'll put the block in here on the crane, and we're going to put some engine mounts in here somewhere. Now, we may have to move these shock mounts. That mount, you can see, has clearly just been fabbed out of a piece of angle iron, but we may have to move that. And the only thing that I have a little bit of worry about is the steering shaft right here. We might have to jiggle around, offset to one side or something like that, just to get that to fit, because I feel like the motor mount is going to end up kind of like right in that area, but hopefully not. Hopefully it ends up back here and we don't have to fuss with this. we will see what happens. You know, the other V8 was in there, and they're basically the same configuration. It's just where the motor mounts are. So we'll see what happens, but we'll do what we have to do. We may have to change the steering shaft. You know, that could be something where we, you know, put a you know, a U-joint in the steering shaft. That's, you know, that's possible too. Hopefully not, but that's possible. And there is the bell housing that came out of this one, along with the clutch fork and the throw-up bearing, all of which we will get moving. There's one of the mounts that we had to take out. You see, you know how we had to cut it out. The interesting thing with this vehicle is that these were just, you could see where these were just hacked out of another vehicle and then bolted here. They were bolted to the frame. They weren't welded in, they weren't riveted in, they were bolted in. So I don't know, a lot of people say, oh, you gotta weld your, you know, these are weld in, these are welded. This vehicle was a snowplow vehicle, and it worked for a lot of years as a snowplow vehicle. And we fought with those to get those off, those motor mounts. And there's the other motor mount right there next to the hammer. And you can see they're not even from the, they weren't even the same. This one's a lot wider. This is where the motor mounted, and this is where it mounted to the frame. This side is where it mounted to the frame, and you can see the holes that, you know, were, I don't know, these must have been in it, but these were the holes that it was bolted to the frame with. And again, bolted, not welded. This thing lasted long enough for this to rust through right there, and it never had a problem. So I don't know. I think that just shows you there's a lot of ways that shit can get done. There's a lot of ways that shit can get done. So, all right, I gotta order some parts. So I'll come back when we got parts.